I was watching this interview by Sam Altman recently. He's the CEO of OpenAI, and he touched on a lot of topics, but there was this one phrase that really caught my attention. He said the following about the culture at OpenAI. We try lots of things, let people follow their intuition, and when something starts working, we put a lot more resources behind it. And I thought that's exactly how I think about productivity practices. There are very few gold standards that would just work for everyone with the exact same result. You have to try lots of things. You have to follow your intuition. And when something starts working, you just have to put a lot more of your energy behind that practice to make it stick. I have experimented with more practices than I can recall over the past few years, especially when it comes to planning my week, my day, and my year. And finally, I feel confident enough with my current practice to make a video about it. But I will tell you that this practice might not work for you, it's not for everyone. But I do hope it serves at least as inspiration for you to keep searching until you find something that sticks for you. So in this video, I'm gonna show you my custom-built GTD planner in Notion, walk you through how I use it every week, and hopefully help you create your planner. And if you find some value from this video and you wanna help me in return in some way, I'm gonna show you a few ways that you can support me at the end of this video. So stick till the end. But first, what is Notion and what is GTD? Notion is the name of a startup as well as its product. It's an all-in-one productivity tool that lets you build anything from wikis to Kanban boards to documents to databases to, well, you get the idea. And GTD is just an acronym for Getting Things Done. It's a process that was popularized by David Allen in early 2000. Simply put, it forces you to externalize everything you have to do, make it into actionable tasks, and then assign proper tags. That's it. So in my planner, I have implemented GTD a little differently than how other people have, but still retaining the essence of the concept. So let's get started. Based on a quick view, you can see that it's really just a database filled with specific columns. That's all it is. The real magic happens when we start using that in different ways, which I'll show you in a few minutes. Let's take a closer look at some of these columns here. Starting with the task. The task column comprises of the tasks that you need to accomplish, pretty self-explanatory. The status column is where you tag these tasks. I use specific tags like starting with delayed. Delayed mean tasks which were scheduled for, say, this week or the past week, but did not get done. To do means tasks which is upcoming, which we haven't started working on yet. This week refers to tasks that we are currently working on in this week. Done, as you can see, means tasks which are completed. Delayed and done means tasks which were delayed and completed. And finally, never just refers to tasks which you schedule, but then you realize later that you actually don't think it's important enough to get done. The number of hours refers to how much time it took for you to actually complete that task. The vertical refers to the really high level umbrella under which this task lies. And under the vertical, I like to have one more level of granularity where the project talks about which project it belongs to under that vertical. Next, we have day. So day refers to the days in which I end up working on this specific task. This only applies to tasks which have a this week tag because it's talking about all the tasks that are assigned this week. What days am I working on those tasks? Then there is week. I like to assign the Monday of each week, which to me is the beginning of a week, at least in my case. The week number column will be obvious to you in just a minute or so when I show you a few views of how I use this. So just remember that I have to explain to you what week number means. And then there is due date. So due date is a very optional column. Sometimes if I have a due date for a specific task, like for example, this task, which is to purchase groceries, which I don't want to forget because I don't want to starve. So for those kind of tasks, I'd like to assign due date. Once you assign due dates, it also helps if you sort the entire table such that those which have a due date come on top, so you don't forget that. Yep, that's pretty much it. That's all there is to the GTD planner itself. As I told you, the real magic happens in how we start using them. So there are three major views that are important when it comes to using my planner. The first view is called the coming up view. It's filtered for all the tasks which either have the status to do or the status delayed. The second view that's important is the this week view. I've grouped all the tasks for this week by the day. So these are my tasks for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and it goes all the way until Sunday. And the third view that's important for us is the retrospective view. So if you remember, I told you that I explained what the week number meant. So it's time for that. The retrospective is the name of a linked database. So think of it as there is a primary table, which is the GTD planner, and then there is this second table, which is used to record feedback for each of the week that we go through in our lives. They both are connected by this column called the week number. So the retrospective view has a few columns as well. It has the planned hours versus actual hours. When I show you how I use my planner, I'll explain these things in proper detail. And I know these are unintuitive right now. This is just a list of all the projects that I'm working on in the current week. Mainly, I use the retrospective table to record the feedback. So once I'm done with the week, I'll come here and record feedback of was it great, could it be better, and so on. And also record some manual written feedback here. So to quickly summarize, I showed you my custom built GTD planner in Notion along with the three major components, which is first the coming up view, which has a list of all the tasks that you have to do. Second is the this week view, which has a list of all the tasks that you're currently working on this week. And finally, the retrospective linked database view, which basically is just a way for you to record feedback from all of your past weeks. All right, hopefully you have a hang of what the GTD planner is about by now. Next, I'm going to walk you through how exactly I use it to plan my weeks. I generally allocate 45 minutes every Sunday night to plan for the next week. And on average, it does take me between 35 to 45 minutes to do the entire ritual and practice. So my practice has 4 steps. First, I visit the retrospective table to record the feedback from the past week. At the end of your week, when you're planning for the next week, this is how your this week view is supposed to look like. Because this week view contains the tasks that you worked on in this week. So by the end of the week, ideally, either all of the tasks should be tagged as done, or you should just mark them as delayed and then move it into the coming up table, and you can revisit that later on. Now, coming to the retrospective, I take a look at all the tasks which were completed from the past week. And once I have an idea of that, I look for 3 things. First, I ask myself, how many hours did I plan to work versus actually work to complete all the tasks? And this is just a way for me to help myself get better at allocating the time for a task. Second, I ask myself, how did the week go? For now, let's just say the week was exceptional. And then I also write down some manual text feedback. So it seems like I made a post about an article, which is great. I signed up for a gym membership. That's also great. And I also seem to have made progress on another article, which apparently took 8 hours. This is all just for example. So I would go here and I would actually write down published and made progress. And third and finally, I would ask myself, what are some experiments that I want to try for next week? And it's important to note here that your planning process and your practices will always be a work in progress. So it's good to acknowledge that by thinking about what you can try every single week for the next week. So I would like to read. And since I signed up for the gym membership, I would also like to go to the gym 4 out of 7 days. Let's be a little merciful. And that's the end of me spending time on the retrospective table. I would then shift over to the coming up view. This is where I generally tend to spend the bulk of my 45 minutes. So in terms of creating the tasks, first, I would take a look at all of the tasks that got done the past week. Because more often than not, many of the tasks that I work on are not just one-off tasks that take just a week to complete. So these are tasks that were born out of the things that we worked on the past week. So quickly, I would just create these 3 tasks. And once I create them, I'd start assigning, for now, just the vertical and project. Reading a book comes under creative pursuits, learning. Okay, great. First, I've looked at all the tasks from past week and created tasks based on that for the next week. Second, I seem to already have a bunch of tasks which I created a while ago, either during the past week or even well before that. So anytime that I think, oh, I need to do this, the first thing that I do is I come to this coming up view and I add a task here. You just need to externalize every single task that you can think of that need to get done in the future. So once I've created tasks based on past week's tasks and then reviewed whatever is already present, I would start prioritizing them. So once I know the ones that are important, I would start assigning the week tag for them.
Assuming that we're still in the past, and I know we're not, but let's just, for the sake of an example, do January 11th, which is the second week of the year. I would assign January 11th to the tasks that need to get done next week. This, okay, just a few tasks for now, for example. And sometimes certain tasks, I also would add more context inside of the task. For example, begin prep for Navita's keynote speech. So this is where you can make use of this pre-made template that I've created. And it really helps to add the prerequisite context now itself. When you're planning, you're in a calm mindset. You ideally should be in a quiet environment and you're thinking only about the next 7 days and what you want to get done. So it's a lot easier to add these contextual information now versus letting your future self suffer and figure these out in a day that's already filled with a lot of attention switching and context switching. For example, this could be things like review by speech requirements, and then steps to follow. Write draft one. You get the idea. It's just to make the life of your future self easier by adding these contexts. So to recap, so far we looked at the retrospective table and filled in the past week and how it went. Second, we created a list of tasks for next week. And finally, we prioritized them so that we only work on a subset of all the tasks present in the coming up table. Third step that I do is I assign metrics. More specifically, I assign the number of hours, the days, and the week number. So now finally the time has come to explain the planned versus actual hours. I would assign a certain number of hours that I anticipate these tasks would take. For example, let's say 1, 3, 5, and I assign, say, week 2. If I go to the retrospective table, you'll see the magic here. You can see that all of the tasks that I tagged as week 2 show up under week 2, and the actual hours has summed up the total number of hours that I assigned for each of the tasks individually. So what I tend to do is once I know the total number of hours that I've planned to work on for next week, I would move this over and manually enter 27 under planned hours. Throughout the week, as I'm working on these tasks, before closing the task, I would update the number of hours from 5 to 6. And when I update it here, it automatically gets updated in the retrospective table in the actual hours. See, as you can see, it went from 27 to 28 now. So it's really just a way to keep track of the planned versus actual hours, and I do it in a slightly non-intuitive way that's only intuitive to me at this point. Okay, great. So I assign the number of hours metric, then I assign the week metric, and finally, I also tend to assign the day metric. The day metric is really flexible, but just to understand how I want my week to be, I like to assign the days beforehand. So now just for example, let's assign some days. I will work on this Thursday and Friday. Since I'm reading all 5 days, I like to put all 5 days. So right now we have everything we need to actually start working on these tasks. The final step, which to me is the most fun really, is to change all the status tags from to do to this week. And as soon as I click on this week, you would notice that the task would disappear from this table and it'll start appearing in the this week table. Just like magic. And that's it. Now all of the tasks that I'm working on for the next week are beautifully laid out in this Kanban board arrangement. And that is the end of my planning process.
Hopefully, I haven't scared you yet. I know that looked like a ton of effort, but I'm telling you, it takes less than 45 minutes for me to go through the entire ritual every week. The best part is, once I do that, I know exactly what I'm working on for the rest of the 7 days, and I also know why I'm working on it and why it's important. So if you like what you saw so far and you want to get started, then the first thing is install Notion if you haven't yet. Fortunately, Notion made their Tier 1 plan, which has unlimited pages and blocks, completely free last year for everyone. So you don't have to worry about getting charged even in the future right now. Second, if you want to use the template that I just showed you, then it's there in the description below. The link has all the 3 views that I just showed you, and I've added more comments in there for you to use them. And third and most importantly, just think about the end goal. The best planner in the world is useless if you don't know what you're using it for and what you're trying to achieve with it. In my case, it took me an entire day in December of 2020 just to think about what I want to accomplish in 2021. I asked myself, what are the 3 or 4 verticals in which I want to make significant progress? And what are the 3 or 4 projects that I can work on to make that progress in that vertical? You don't have to do it exactly the same way, but just make sure that anytime you work on a task, it's still related to some bigger goal that you're trying to work towards in your life. So if you watch till here and you feel like this just isn't right for you, then that's completely okay. Or if you watch till here and you ended up using my planner and you figured out that maybe a month from now it just doesn't seem like it's working for you, that's really okay too. Regardless of what happens, you learn something new. And honestly, to me, what matters is that you tried. Hey, thank you so much for watching the video until now. To me, my time is the most valuable asset, so the fact that you gave me some of your valuable asset means a lot. If you found value from this video and want to help me or support me in some way, all you have to do is use some very cool apps, that's all. I painstakingly and carefully choose the products and services that I use. And fortunately, some of them also give me some referral and bonus points. So I've put the links for a few of the apps that I currently use below in the description. So if you feel like you're in need of an app that serves the use case that I've mentioned below, I would be grateful if you use my link. If you want to see a longer list of the apps and services that I use and want to support me even more, then all you have to do is visit my website's resources page and everything is there. Once again, thank you so much. Here's to a great 2021.